It's a really long way of saying this thing's basically a piece of junk. This old girl's kind of tired. And I don't mean the Jeep itself, I mean the engine. I've been noticing lately it's a little bit down on power. I've had some lingering issues for a long time that have kind of swept under the rug, and I think I'm going to start taking some steps today to see if we can't get to the bottom of what's going on. So one of the most annoying issues with this Jeep is it has a little bit of blow-by, or at least I think that's what's going on. The reason I say that is I've tried a couple times to change the rear main seal, and it'll last and be good for a week or two, but the minute I try driving on the highway or like driving this thing hard, it blows the seal out again. So I'm all constantly leaking oil everywhere. And then it also pukes it out of the front port on the valve cover onto what used to be my air filter, but I've since used a different air setup, which I can get into that in a minute. So now I just have this little filter on here. This is supposed to be an intake for fresh air, and the port on the back of the valve cover is got a metered hole, and it gets sucked into your intake, and it's supposed to create some negative pressure in there and keep oil from blowing out of that. But that is not the case. So this thing's constantly puking oil in here. It used to puke it on my old air filter as well. And I went through and bought all new CCV, cleaned the tubes, cleaned the baffles out inside the valve cover, all the stuff that you find online when you tell people you have that problem, and it never fixed it. So generally, why would it be creating all that extra pressure in there? And that leads me to blow-by. The thing about blow-by is generally you would have bad piston rings, and that would lead me to believe that I would have smoke coming out the tailpipe, or oil smoke, and I don't have any of that. And one of my concerns is that maybe I have a blown head gasket, but not to a coolant passage, just between compression and one of the oil galleys or the crankcase. It's very possible it's leaking compression in that manner. It could also be any number of problems with valves or anything like that. Now I do have an event coming up in just under a week. I'll be at the Badlands, Attica, Indiana, October 14th and 15th. It's the Customer Appreciation Day. A bunch of my buddies go to it every year, and this year I'm finally going with them. But anyway, that doesn't give me a lot of time, but I'm gonna start with a compression test. Surely you've all seen that, so I'm not gonna get too in detail on that, but I've always been curious how healthy this motor actually is, so let's find out. So you can see that I'm using this crappy eBay air intake. Now I didn't do that because I thought I would get power or anything. I did that because I went to this upgraded brake system for the big axles, and what that did was it made it where I could no longer fit this box in here. I mean, it physically fits, I got it backwards, but it would not fit the mount that it goes to, which is riveted to the fender. And I was going to have to relocate the power steering. I was going to have to chop this tube and do a bunch of stuff. And to me, it seemed a whole lot easier just to rip this thing out and go to that setup. Now, the thing is, this hose right here is the evap purge, which is just supposed to dump to intake somewhere. And then this thing is supposed to have a hose that comes over here. And so what this thing used to do long before I had that was it would just puke oil in here, and then my air filter would get covered in oil. The bottom of the box would, I mean, it never got full, but it would have oil in the bottom of the box. And, you know, like I said earlier, I went through and I did all the stuff you're supposed to do to fix it, and it didn't fix it. And when I went to this setup, I didn't have a second port to run this to. I didn't feel like trying to tee it. So yeah, I ended up just putting one of these little AutoZone breathers on here because I figured in the event that, you know, when this thing's idling, it actually does have suction on here like it's supposed to. It's supposed to be sucking air in. But I believe it's when I'm under load or just running on the highway at 3,000 RPMs that it can't, the little CCB can't keep up with the amount of blow-by or whatever, and it starts pushing stuff out of this. So for one, it's making me have oil all over everything. It's blowing out the seals. It's making my valve cover leak at the back, even though I've retorqued the bolts and it has a newer gasket. It's a really long way of saying this thing's basically a piece of junk, and it's tired, and it feels like it's down on power. The good news is, I do have a spare 4.0 sitting in my driveway, so if I think that the head's bad, or maybe that the whole engine's bad, I got a free swap that I can do. And one of these days, I'd like to build this into a 4.7 stroker, so who knows? But let's start moving some stuff out of the way, like this compressor and stuff, so I can get at the plugs, and we'll run a compression test. Before I get too dirty, guys, I figured I better show you this awesome gear. I finally made my website, And you might see some links below the video where you can see this hat. I've got stickers, I've got hoodies, I've got shirts like this one, Leaf Springs for Poor People. I literally sat there on my computer and designed this, so I hope you like it, because, you know, it's Iowa's best right there. But I really appreciate any of the support you guys give. And I've already had quite a few orders, so if you're one of the people that already ordered, thank you very much, and your stuff should be there soon. You know, in one video, I had somebody ask me what this mouse nest of wires is right here. And I actually ran wires up here, and I have a light in the top of my hood to light up the engine bay. I had a switch there. The switch broke. I don't have a good place to put it where it's not in the way of stuff. And so literally I just have this unplugged. But all I got to do is plug this in and then touch those together, and we got some under hood light. Hopefully it still works, and hopefully I can find the dang plug for it. So yeah, it's quite handy when it's dark out to be able to have a light and kind of halfway see what you're doing. I'm definitely going to have to get this air compressor out of the way to get to the first two plugs, but luckily it's pretty easy to remove. Just got these rubber isolator plugs that just pop out. I just broke the rubber isolator thing because I'm a stooge. Whatever. Of course, the ones I just yank, they just come right off. Make sure you mix up all your plug wires when you do this, so then you can't get it to start when you're done. I'll just put lines on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. It's actually been probably 5 years since I've put new plugs in this thing, so we're also going to be, you know, inspecting the condition of them, and if they look like they've had enough, then we'll get new ones. Obviously this thing doesn't see a lot of road miles, so 5 years shouldn't be that big of an issue, but they are just, you know, champion coppers, I believe. That's what these old 4-liters like. I brought a couple of different spark plug sockets because I don't recall if it's the big ends or the little ends. I think it's the little ends. Yep. I like to lay them out and put them back in the same cylinder that they came out of too. Honestly, that don't look half bad really. And I also brought the old gapper out here so we can check that too. So I like to do my compression test with all the plugs out because it just makes the engine spin over a lot quicker with no compression. Before we do that, I will pull the fuel pump relay or something so that it doesn't kick on. Always a good sign when they just come out nice and easy. It really is a good idea to use a spark plug socket and not just a socket, because you see how it just picks it up out of there. It's got rubber inside of it, which also helps protect the ceramic. Yeah, you can get by with just a 5/8 socket, but these things are dirt cheap. There's no reason not to use one. Oh yeah, I was right. Champion coppers. This one looks pretty good too. I may have this hat on, you know, so I could show it to you guys, but it is not winter hat season. I'm kind of sweating to death here. Today's October 4th. It was still over 80 degrees. It was almost 90 yesterday, but by Friday it's going to be like 57 for a high, and I can't wait, dude. I'm so here for it. I'm so ready for hoodie weather. Number 4 looks good. Number 5 looks good. I will be checking all the ceramics also to see if any of them are cracked. I actually had this long-standing misfire on my old truck, and I had changed the plugs, and then it still cut, and it turns out one of the new plugs, I must have cracked the ceramic when I installed it, and I chased my tail for months on that misfire, and it turned out that's all it was the whole time. Oh, number 6 is trying to play hard to get here. Number 6 looks good too. Well, that's always a good start when the plugs don't look like hell. So now I'm going to pop inside of here if I can get this to open with all this junk in the way. One of these 3 relays is the fuel pump, and that would be this one right there. So this is my compression tester. This is obviously just the Hobo Freight version. And actually, I don't think I bought this from Harbor Freight. I think I got this for like $5 at a garage sale, but you know, it comes with 3 different thread sizes and has the quick connect to here so you can spin this in easy. It actually works pretty good. Alright, so we're just going to go through these one at a time. Since I got to be in there to start it, I'm just going to set up a camera that's looking right at the gauge, and y'all can just tell me what my numbers are, alright? What in the hell? Having some technical difficulties here. I know this is the right one, but it don't want to thread in. So I'm completely baffled here. So we're going to come over to this head on my wall to show you what's up. So this is the Jeep spark plug. As you can see, it fits into this one. That one's, there's paint inside these threads, so they're not the easiest, but it fits. Here's my piece for the compression tester. It fits and it threads right in because these things have that like that little bit of non-threaded that's supposed to make it easy. I can thread this in anywhere else, but all 6 of my spark plug holes, this thing will not go in. It will not start. This is the first time I've ever had this problem before. And of course I took the spark plugs and they thread right back in. Every single one of them will thread right back in, no problem. But no matter what I do, I cannot get this thing to start.
Later.
Okay, so I got this figured out and I feel kind of stupid about it. Apparently I need a long reach adapter, so I got to look in. You're probably not going to be able to see it, but the threads don't start until about a 1/2 inch down inside of that hole. And this is not even a 1/2 inch long, so the threads just aren't making it. And apparently some better compression testers have like longer threads on them, or they have like a long reach adapter. Yeah, mine don't have that. So I'm gonna have to figure something else out and come back another night.
The next day.
Just kidding, we went to Advance, got the hookup. So if y'all run into the same problem, Innova 3612, you look, it's got that adapter, the long reach. You can see it's a good bit longer than the silver one next to it, so it should work. Having all the plugs out, this should spin over really quick. Let's see what we got. Sitting at about $1.25, so let's get a paper and write it down. Well, I don't know where the camera cut off, but I did number 5 twice. It had 118 and then 105, so that's not good. Now we are on number 6. $135. For some reason I'm smelling fuel and I have the fuel pump shut off. Well, I think the camera died somewhere in that last run. Got a new battery. I did number 6. It came out to 135. So you can see those are the numbers: 128, 130, 130, 140. And then number 5's not looking so hot. And then 135. I don't know though. Is 105, 118, is that indicative of a problem? A compression leak? Kind of wondering if I should squirt some oil or some PB Blaster in there and do a wet test also. Figure I might as well check this plug gap while I'm at it. So I'm setting these to 035, that's what it calls for, and I got that on this little guy. It's this one right here. So far they've all been pretty much bang on. This one might be a little loose. Alright, settles that debate. Okay, so I just reran the numbers with a shot of oil in each of the cylinders, which is like the wet test if you want to call it that. And they got a little bit better. So like 128, 130, 130, 135, 130, 140, 140, 145. And then this one, 118 and 105 was the first two times. And then I got 130 with the oil. And then 135 to 141. So they definitely increased, and that one that's the suspect one had the biggest increase, which could lead to, you know, the possibility of the rings being smoked or whatever. Since that one was the fifth one, what I'm going to do now is put the gauge. I wish I had a way to do a leak down test, but the gauge itself has like a check valve in it, so once you pump it up to a certain height, it kind of just holds it there till you push that release button. So I gotta figure out if there's a way I can see if it's like losing what compression it has. I know this is gonna sound stupid, but to be honest with you, I was actually hoping for like just a stupidly obvious, you know, one that only had like 80 or something. Cause then that's like, to me, that's enough to say, you know what? Yeah, let's pull this head off, or hey, let's throw this other engine in the driveway in here. But, you know, this isn't as bad as I thought. Which is good and bad. Well guys, I'll be honest, I'm not super happy about that. I honestly would have rather one just said 70 or something, or be perfect. I didn't want anything in between. But I don't have time to really do much about it right now. I got a wheeling trip in 7 days. Yeah, a week from tomorrow, heading to the Badlands. This was mostly an explorative mission, so we know a little bit more than we did before I started. But we'll get her slammed back together, and she'll live to wheel another day or 10. Well, everything's back in, so let's see if it at least starts. Maybe I did something right. Oh yeah, she's gonna stink like burnt oil for a while since, you know, I squirted oil in the cylinders. Well guys, I intended on doing a bunch more stuff in this video, and it just kind of didn't happen. And actually we just got back from a weekend wheeling at the Badlands, so it was awesome if I saw you out there. Good to meet you, whatever. You can see it's kind of a mess in here. Tents and camping gear and tools and everything's just kind of in here drying out because it rained on us all freaking weekend long. But it was still amazing, and I got the Jeep into some really gnarly stuff, so what I'm going to do is leave you with a sneak peek of that, and then keep your eyes peeled probably another week or two, and I'll have that video out. So here you go, check it out, and thanks for watching.
I said, now crank right, hard. There it is. Hold on. You're hitting your shackle, you're not going to crawl that. That's a heavy diff. That works.